Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? And so
Yeah.
I'm curious about not only in your
Yeah.
personal journey, if that's something that you battled and struggled with,
Mhm.
but for those who probably battle and struggle with that as well, what kind of tools
Yeah.
can you give them to be able to step into taking care of their physical bodies?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I experienced that too. For me, it was perfectionism was really the one driving the train, meaning I wanted to please outwardly so that I could get that love because I didn't get that love in my home unless I did the things I was supposed to do or I was asked to do. And so that just became the pattern that I operated in. So when it came to my health, for me as I started to have more tension in my body and I started to have more outwardly stress, I tried to control my experience inwardly, meaning I restricted my diet and I looked out culturally, like what does a what is a healthy woman supposed to be like? She's thin, she's got the long hair, she's, got the gap between her legs or, whatever culturally those messages were. I started to take those on and be like, okay, I'm going to restrict my diet. I would only eat maybe 1,200 calories a day, that and 1,500 if I worked out. And I would, be the one doing the aerobics all the time, you know, working myself out so that I could eat the food. And then at some point, it got really unhealthy where I was like, I can't have this or I can't eat this. And all of a sudden, my life revolved around what food I could eat and what food I couldn't eat. And it just, the control started getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And eventually, I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker because my body had no nutrients. I was eating like cottage cheese and, like no vegetables, and it was a very restricted diet. And I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was like literally starving myself, not giving myself the right things. And for me, it was going through that paleo journey and changing my diet where I started to understand like actually I can eat food, I can eat a whole range of food and I can still be healthy and I can still have, muscles and I can be stronger than I ever was. I can have, you know, this beautiful, healthy body and it doesn't have to look like what's out in the magazines or what, Cosmo is telling you is a healthy woman. And that for me started to become the shift because I had to shift this mentality of like, I don't need to please anyone else. Like, I can be me. And me looks like this. And me is healthy when I eat these things. And so the people that I've worked with when it has come to shifting those patterns has really come down to one, understanding their past and how did their experience in their past shift how they nourished themselves? Meaning, how did they nourish themselves through, relationships? How do they nourish themselves through food? What role does food play in their life today? So when they're happy and healthy, great, they're eating, they're enjoying the food or whatever. But what happens when you're angry or you're sad or you're depressed? How does food play into that? And oftentimes I see people who have emotional eating patterns or they're, binging and purging patterns, and they're using food as a way of comfort. And so we work in understanding one, how does food play in your life? What role does it have? How are in no judgment because we all food is a part of everyone's life and it shows up, we use it differently at different times in our lives. So no judgment, but it's like, how can we shift this relationship to food? And so when I work with people, we look at that relationship and we start to implement healthier ways to handle. So if I'm using food as a coping mechanisms for my emotions, I'm going to walk them through my love methodology to help them understand how to process those emotions without needing the food as a part of that experience. That might also be looking at, anytime you're sitting down to eat food, you're thinking it, you're having a different relationship with it rather than, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed. wow, this food is starting to nourish me and I can take control of my health. And by eating this food, I'm going to have energy to do the things that I really want to do. So for me, it's tying in those, what is it that I really want to do with my life? And what is the role food has today in my life? And starting to slowly shift those patterns with one, starting to connect with your emotion and learning how to process that emotion without the use of the food. And two, really getting into the state of visualizing what you want to, how you want to operate in your life. What would ideally you be doing? And really using that vision, that experience every time you start to eat something healthy and shifting your mindset around that.